Star Wars geek girls. They're geek girls that like Star Wars. And sometimes cry.
But, you got 5 guys in the offensive line who haven't played yet together. That's trouble. That's an issue.
Yeah, that's the
Timing issue.
that's really the only issue, though. At least we can rely on their wide receivers and running backs. I think they should trade Josh Allen.
I don't even know if the team is
I don't think we should.
after that drop last week.
I think they're using him. They're treating him like Nick the Dead.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Oh, thanks. Where's James Arnold Taylor?
He couldn't make it because of a scheduling conflict. He posted it on Facebook a couple of days ago.
It's not the panel you're looking for.
No.
Well, we brought Fred Tatasciore.
Yeah, we did. Ladies and gentlemen, Fred Tatasciore.
Nice to see you.
Freddie, why don't you tell them who you've played in the Star Wars universe? Bring them up to speed.
Well, let me just get that out.
Fred
Well,
works
right
on-
now I'm Bolza Gruel in the new show. And if you go to Disneyland, I'm Darth Vader, if you go meet him. And General Tarples in a few of the other shows. I play Qui-Gon Jinn, the Zilla Beast, the slave. I had the name of it. Had it right here. You got me too early. This is what I was writing. Oh, sorry. You have a microphone. I thought you had
You're
one.
sexy,
Sorry.
but you don't get two
Oppo
microphones. Sorry.
Rensis. Qui-Gon Jinn, General Tarples, Zilla Beast, Bolza Gruul, and then a lot of stuff for the games, a lot of Wookiee talk, and other Jedi and Sith. So it's great to see you guys. Or should I mean, it's very good to see you.
Nice surprise, huh? Pretty good. Yeah, so we're really sad that James and Vanessa could not be here with us. But they're out making money and stuff.
No,
so
Governor Price finally got all of them.
we have nothing better to do, so we showed up. No, we love you guys. Thank you for having us here. I'm Steve Bloom. I play Zeb Aurelios on Star Wars Rebels. And thank you for that one person who knows. Good. And 1/3 of all the stormtroopers in the games and in that show and in a couple of the movies now, too. I got to be in Solo and Rogue One. I was actually one of the guys who said, kill them slower when Chewie and Han first met each other. So,
scene.
yeah, so another reason to hate me. Yes, yes. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is my Governor Price.
Hello, I'm Mary Elizabeth McGlynn, and I play Governor Price in Star Wars Rebels. Oh, rebel scum. All of you. All of you.
Impressive.
I also play Freya Fenris in Star Wars Resistance, along with 4D Min and Jukes, and I'm also Star Wars Resistance voiceover director as well. So, yay!
And that's Sabine.
And that's
Hi, Sabine.
I'm not Tia Sircar, unfortunately. I'm Zoe, and I run the Star Wars Geek Girl podcast with Lizzie Perales, who is the first Sabine. And I'm here with you guys today, which is
Well,
cool.
thank
Thank
you
you.
for having us.
She's here to keep us out of jail, is basically what that is. Yeah. Is there a plan for this?
I have questions.
Oh, okay.
I would like
we
to
have
answer questions.
we have
So do
answers.
I.
Don't
I
make
have a
them
lot
hard.
of questions.
Oh, also we brought for the weirdest question from the audience later. If we get two really weird questions, we have two of these that we're going to sign for you guys. Okay.
We also have some at our tables down in the dealer hall, or up in the dealer hall. This is down. It's the upside down. I don't know if you've noticed that, but we've
is
been in
upside-
there for a while now.
Come visit us down there if you want.
Yeah, well, 15 minutes at the end. So think of questions now. Think of weird questions now, apparently. So my first question is just, how did you get involved with Rebels? Like, how did that go for you?
Well, I auditioned, and I remember getting the audition and looking at it, and it was for something called Wolf. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. And then some of the dialogue had a description with a light sword, and I went, oh, well, that's interesting. And then at the end of the audition, the character was supposed to be choked by an unseeable force. And I remember turning to Steve going, I think this is for Rebels, because Steve had already been on it for, I think this was for season 3. So, and I just said, Baba, I think this is for Rebels. And when I got the part, Dave Filoni came out, my first record, and came out in the lobby, and he said, you know, Mary, you didn't get this because of Steve. You got it because of you. And I was like, oh, Dave, thanks. Good to know.
He did the same thing for me when I worked on Resistance recently. I auditioned for a part on the show. I played a trooper who just got beaten up over and over and over again, dragged around. And they told me when I walked in the room, by the way, this has nothing to do with Mary. You actually got this on your own merits. We don't do that here. So
On your own
yeah.
Mary.
On my own merits, yeah. I found out the show similarly. It was called Wolf when I auditioned for it as well, and I didn't know it was Star Wars at the time. There were indications of troopers on the thing, but you see that in so many different things. And it looked like a military character that I was reading for. We didn't have pictures. We didn't have anything to go by. Even went to the callbacks at Disney and sitting in front of everybody from the Rebels crew, and they're grilling me through this thing. And I think at that time they probably told us it was for Star Wars, but it just didn't sink in. It wasn't until I actually booked it. I happened to be in Birmingham, England for a Transformers convention, and I get a phone call from my agent saying, you need to go to a studio. We're going to send you out to this studio at somebody's house out in the country. We're going to hire you a cab and just go out there and they'll have your script. And I didn't know what it was. I had forgotten about doing the audition for Rebels, and it wasn't called Rebels still. And I go to this house and I'm lost in this neighborhood, and this sweet elderly couple comes out. They look like an English version of Ma and Pa Kettle. Oh, right this way, dearie. Come on in. And they bring me into this studio on the second floor of their beautiful old home. And I walk up in there, and there's no air conditioning, and I'm sweating, and they give me the headphones, and Filoni is on the phone on the other side. And I just hear this voice that sounds familiar, but I didn't really know him very well. And he goes, okay, Steve, so we decided that we're going to go with whatever the accent was that we worked out at the time. We ran through a whole bunch of different accents. And he goes, and you're going to be killing a stormtrooper. And I see stormtrooper in the script as he's saying this, and all of a sudden I went, oh my God, this is Star Wars. This is Star Wars! And the inner fanboy squeal must have been outward because they all laughed, and it was amazing. So that's when it really set in that it was Star Wars. And being a Star Wars fan since 1977, that excitement never stopped. Every single time we did a session from that point forward, I still felt the same hairs on the back of the neck that I felt in 1977 when I first saw the Imperial destroyer go overhead and felt the rumble. So anyway, it was a really weird experience getting in, but it never got old. Freddie, what was your experience getting on the shows? Because you've worked on a bunch of the Star Wars shows. Clone Wars
it's
and
kind of
Rebels.
the same as you. I love that. I'd love to know what else they record in Birmingham. Was that in Birmingham where you did that? That's so cool. Yeah. I really, for me, it's just been, again, I'm such a huge fan. For me, it's just the same thing. It's just been auditions. You just try to, they'll send you a description. And again, you start to figure out what's what, because you do see, I think they called the Force the knowledge or something at one time. It's like, and now the knowledge is strong with him. I'm like, no. Because they try to keep it, under wraps. So for me, it was just auditioning, and my inner geek just, freaks out anytime I work on a video game or anything, or someone asks you to do an iconic character or try to be a Wookiee for a number of projects. And what's weird is I had a project where they had translations of what the Wookiee was saying. So you had to make up how that would, like, okay, I'll meet you at the cargo bay. I'm really upset about this. And it was, but I don't know if you guys found that, like, they're pretty loose about, like, even Huttese or anything. Like, if you speak Klingon, you have to speak Klingon. This is really they're pretty open, which is very exciting. And so that's just generally it, of just being around and auditioning. That's pretty much
And the three of us are old enough to have actually been in, at least the two of us are, to see it in 1977.
Yeah, I was very young, but I didn't understand. I was able to go into the theater, but I didn't quite understand the immensity, like what exactly was happening.
I was 17 and I didn't understand the immensity of what happened.
Yeah.
I didn't want to see a stupid space movie with an octopus in it, because they used to have like lobby cards, and they had the shot of Luke, in the trash compactor with a thing around his neck, and I was like, is this like some octopus space movie? Because the original commercials for it, the trailers, didn't have John Williams music, and it was, we've got a space adventure coming at you, and it was really cheesy music, and this thing wasn't color corrected. It just looked terrible, So I was like, this looks awful, and we've waited 3 hours because it was sold out, and I was such a little jerk. And then seeing it, I was just, that downbeat was it for me. It was
we were all blown away.
I don't think I breathed for 2 minutes. It was amazing. Yeah. Never, ever dreamed that I would be a part of this universe.
Oh, I know. It's pretty crazy.
It's really true.
Yeah.
It's funny what you were saying about the Wookiee thing, because I spoke Aqualish and Huttese for a bunch of different projects. And I wanted to get it right, and I was doing all my research online. They said, no, we don't care. Just make it up. It's okay.
You have to say certain lines right.
There are certain things
that, like, like certain things.
There has to be a
Bantha
poodoo in there.
Poodoo has to be very correct.
That kind of crap, Lots of phlegm.
It's pretty weird having to play a version of Jabba that spoke Basic, that spoke English, because they realized, oh no, some of them do actually speak basic. They just have chosen not to.
Yeah. If you've seen the Star Wars Resistance trailer for our next and final season, you will see that we have a new Hutt on the show who does actually speak English.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
which
a
is
cool
pretty
thing.
great.
I want the Wookiees, though, to be like, "Yes, I speak it true. Very true. Yeah. But I choose not to."
Sounds like Hebrew.
It does. Sounds like it sounds like you're underwater. It's like underwater Wookiee.
Did we even answer your question? I don't even remember what it was anymore. Yes.
Yeah, you did.
Is the panel over? Did we talk all the way through it?
Okay, fire away. Sorry.
All right, well, that's fine. My next question was, how did you prepare? I know you said you worked through different accents. So, like, what kind of preparation did you do? Like, I know you said, like, too, like the lines. So, like, when you go for a role, what do you work through, I guess?
For me, it's an organic process. I look at the words in whatever direction I'm given. Hopefully, if they give you a picture, it creates pictures in my mind, and I just build something around that. For Zeb, the original direction, I think, was they wanted something that sort of sounded European-ish, and he was a big hulking character. That's all they really told me. He was a soldier. So I started with a real thick Cockney accent. Then I brought that into the studio for the callbacks. And they said, yeah, that's great, but nobody will understand what you're saying. So they ran me through German and Russian and French and Italian. We went through a whole bunch of different accents. And what we landed on was basically a crappy South London with a little bit of Australian sprinkled in. And it just seemed to work for the character. By that time, we actually had a model of the character to look at. And the way he walked, the way he moved, there had to be something that rhythmically would work with his cadence, too. He's almost simian, the way he functions. So this worked pretty efficiently for him. I could take my beats and pauses when I needed to, that sort of thing. And he cussed a lot, but, the Disney-friendly cuss word of Carabast. But we ran it through with the pieces of dialogue that they gave us at the callback. I think we ran it through probably 20 or 30 times before we settled on what ultimately they used for him.
And Governor Price, all the Imperials were always English, So my grandfather was English, so I've been messing around with that accent for a long time. But her level of arrogance and condescension it was one of the easiest characters I've ever had to play. And I'm not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I mean, all I had to do was stand there like this, and all of a sudden, Governor Price came into view. And it was so easy. It was really scary. Like, I was like, this is like, she has an iPad for torture. This is awesome. And I was just like, oh, there's something wrong with me, that it's really one of the easiest characters for me to get into that I've ever played. Yeah, I don't know why. It's just because, I just thought of that rod strategically placed up at the bum, and I'm just like, well, that's Governor Price, isn't it? And just all this, I don't know, it was so much fun. It's so much fun to tap into someone just that embracingly evil, that she just loved it. She didn't apologize for it. There was I feel like the villains are really easy to play sometimes because their intentions are so clear. There is no conflict. That's just like she wants power. And the only conflict comes from when she can't get it, and that makes her angry. And like Hulk, you don't want to see Governor Price when she gets angry. For those of you who don't know, Fred is also the Hulk.
I've seen you angry. Don't want to do it.
No. But for her, I mean, it was just very simple to sort of go, just rather Helen Mirren, Britishish, and I'm a huge Downton Abbey fan, so I just sort of, Oh, there was a great, who was it? Oh, it was in Sense and Sensibility. Have you guys seen that, the Emma Thompson version of Sense and Sensibility? And there's one of the sisters was sort of very, and she had this awful sort of arrogance to her, and it was very nasal. So I kind of placed it in there instantly, and that was it. Governor Price. Evil.
And we do
so opposite you in so many ways, and I love how easy it is that you got to go into it.
Well, except for the torture part. I know. She likes that. Yeah.
That's why I'm a director.
Exactly.
What about you?
What about me?
Yeah.
How do I get into certain voices? Oh, gosh. Well, let's see. For Balza, when we worked together on that, and so it was just really trying to find. For that one, it was helpful to know who else was in, what the other characters were, because I wanted to kind of do something that was different. Because I play a lot of very big voice characters and stuff, and and kind of understand where his humor was, because a lot of it is it's almost like his downfall or his demise kind of led, as opposed to a vocal thing. It was more of an attitude. Like, he's selling these things, he doesn't quite know what they do, but maybe it'll work out. And there's a kind of a weird heart of gold he has, but he's really definitely the comic relief in many ways. So he's kind of frustrated mostly, but he can be led to something positive. But, I'm just kind of aggravated. You kind of just take a color and go with it, and then see where it leads. For him, it was finding how low he was going to be and how angry, and at what. You know what I mean? He'll beats the stuffing out of somebody, but he's kind of a chicken.
It was also you and D. Baker together in the same room.
So you had little D doing this kind of voice. Yeah, so he's kind of in here. Yeah.
And they were perfect balance.
Kind of a Mutt and Jeff, like, just shut up already. Let's just do this thing. And it was kind of, so that was kind of where the voice came out. I was trying to see what would be the balance between other folks, like D especially, because we're together. So yeah, I was for that character. And then for some of the others, I'm voice match. Like for Qui-Gon Jinn, it was just become that what I knew from Liam. Just that was like. Let me think. For Zilla Beast, it was just a big creature. I had to do, and General Tarpals, of course, I had to base it on what the Gungans sort of sound like, but just sort of make it my own and make him a little different, yes. And calm and heroic. So it was more like emotional beats, really, that led the voice, really.
So this is sort of bouncing off what you said about D. Baker. Is there a character that you like to work with, like as Price or Zev, that you thought was fun to bounce off of?
Well, Clancy Brown and I used to get in the studio all together all the time, which is really fun because I direct him on Tangled. So to actually be on the same side of the glass together was so much fun because we give each other so much grief. So I always loved when Clancy and I would be in the booth together because they would always throw random X-Wing pilots. And Clancy's one line was, "No, no, no," explosion. And I was like, "Clancy, there's only one way to read this line." And he said, "What?" And I was like, "No, no, no!" So Clancy actually read it that way. And it was really, really fun. So really, so much, it's not so much being part of the Empire. And they would always bring me in with the rest of the rebel scum. And they would put... it would be, Freddie and Vanessa and Tia and Taylor and Steve, and then I would be over separated in the same room, but all the way over on the other side. And I think that was a conscious effort on their part to separate me from this really tight family. And at the end of season 4, the guilt that I had sitting in there, knowing what my character, and I won't spoil it for anybody that hasn't seen it, but knowing what my character had done to disrupt the other side of the room was really, it affected me really deeply. It was hard, but I loved when we were all in the room together. I mean, there's nothing like that.
Yeah, the casting of that show was kind of genius, and Dave Filoni, he's a genius in every area, but that was one of the areas that I think was particularly effective because we were that family that you saw on that show. We became that family. I felt like I was the big brother to Ezra, and Taylor and I still have that relationship. Every time I see him, I want to give him a noogie. And Vanessa as Hera, she was our den mother. She was the protector of all of us and kind of the glue that held us all together. And Freddie is, our Jedi master. He's also got that lunatic side of him, but he is my brother too. And Sabine, also little sister. We really became that family. So anytime we got to work together as a cast, that alchemy, that chemistry was always there. And we had so many amazing guest stars that would come in and out of there too. I think my favorite of all was probably Jim Cummings' Hondo. just because sometimes they would let him go off on an ad-lib tangent, and he'd just be hilarious. And now he's part of Galaxy's Edge. If you guys get a chance to go to Disney, either in Orlando or in LA, and check out Galaxy's Edge, he is the voice that you will hear as you're about to go on that ride. I don't want to spoil any of that for you, but there's an amazing full-body animatronic of his character that is just magical. It feels like we're doing the show all over again from the very beginning. But they gave us opportunities also when we had really important scenes with other characters. They made sure that we were together in the booth as much as possible. And that doesn't always happen these days because of everybody's schedules. And I don't know if you guys remember that episode where Zeb and Callus were together on that moon. They actually had us in the room, and I was working with David for that. And he was a very quiet actor to work with. He's an on-camera, classically trained actor, and just wonderful to work with. But that chemistry really brought out something in both of us that brought that to a different level, I think. And I've never experienced that on a cartoon where we get to explore something like that in an enemy mine kind of situation, where we're really discovering the awfulness of our pasts and merging them and finding some commonality. And so it transcended being a cartoon at that point, and it went someplace much deeper and much more powerful. So there were so many moments on that show that were like that. Amazing comedic, wonderful, hilarious things that happened in the studio too, but also powerful, transcendent, personal things.
Oh, if you go to Galaxy's Edge too, save up and do the lightsaber experience. Yeah. It's everything I wanted Harry Potter wand experience to be. It's amazing. It's magical. It's fantastic.
Yeah, and build a droid.
Yeah, you got to build a droid. Like, spoil yourself like a guilty dad. It's worth it. It's so much fun. Seriously, it is so much fun and fully immersive. Fully immersive. There's nothing like seeing the Millennium Falcon right in front of you. Life size, there it is. It's kind of awesome.
And ask the cast members about their backstories, because everybody there on Batuu has created a backstory for themselves, and they will tell you they like to share that stuff, and they will never break character. It's an amazing thing.
They don't know what Disney is. They're like, what is this mouse you speak of? Huh? Yeah. This is Batuu. I know not what you think.
Yeah, I've never been anywhere else.
Yeah.
The force is with this mouse, yes.
So what do you feel, being Rebels cast members, all of you, do you feel that Rebels has had like an impact on Star Wars like as a whole? What impact do you feel like that is?
Well, as a fan, seeing this in the 70s, I was an apathetic teen just graduating high school when the first movie came out. And I remember at that point in my life, I didn't really care about anything. I hated everyone. I hated everything. I just wanted to get out of school and do stupid stuff. And then I saw this movie, and it actually gave me something to care about. I was so excited. It was something completely different. It kind of shifted my perspective of what a film could be. And then all these years later, to work on something like Rebels that was actually real connective tissue for the franchise. It filled in a lot of the questions that I had growing up and watching the movies. And with such a love and an affinity for everything that had come before, including all the Ralph McQuarrie designs that they incorporated into it. The design for Zeb was the original Wookiee. And he was basically a hairless version of that. And they actually made an action figure of that from Ralph McQuarrie's original design with the hair on it. And somebody gave me one of those. I have it sitting on my desk. So to get to work on a piece of Star Wars canon history that really helps to complete the story on that level is just an incredible, humbling honor just to be a little part of that.
I felt also the cast was so well balanced. There was such a wonderful diversity among the cast, and that's, carried itself forward into Resistance and into now the stories of Rey and Poe and Finn, and it just seems like there's always been sort of creature diversity in Star Wars, but Rebels was really the first one that now started to build it even more and more and more culturally and representative of humans in that respect too, which I thought was fantastic. And there's nothing like being part of something that is a bridge between two times. And to see what I love what they do with the animation is that they're filling in the gaps in between and linking it all up. So, just like with Marvel's universe of starting with Iron Man and going to Endgame, you could start with Phantom Menace and go all the way through and include animation and go all the way to where we are now with multiple animated series. It's kind of an amazing.
And they're starting to cross things over into the movies too.
Yeah.
Chopper showed up and the Ghost showed up and you hear Hera's voice in the movies, and I mean it's kind of amazing.
Yeah, we've got Leia on Resistance and Poe, and you'll see all kinds of new characters as well. So.
Yeah, you mentioned connective tissue, and it's a perfect, that's a perfect analogy for it, because it makes the movies, and if you're into the books or the comic books or the games, all of that stuff, and Rebels is just a huge part of that, and it really does make everything a little bit more meaningful, and the story even more meaningful. It's a great story, and it just keeps getting deeper and deeper the more you look at it, and I think that's what I love, that the franchise has allowed that to happen.
Yeah.
It's really been great.
Well, and a lot of that is
an honor to be part of it.
A lot of that is due to Dave Filoni, and who was mentored by George Lucas directly, and so his love for him and his love for his vision is just apparent in everything he does. Every single thing that you saw in that show was well thought out and discussed, to the point of a fruit being introduced into the universe. When the Melu runs, I don't know if you guys remember that episode, when they first introduced that fruit, we had, I think, at least an hour, maybe a 2-hour discussion on how to pronounce it. Because we thought that once we did, that's canon. We've got to get that right. And they actually, to the point where people were having trouble pronouncing it first, especially in that one session, they actually brought in a dry erase board with a phonetic spelling of it. But it was that kind of detail. These guys, we were booked for 4-hour sessions. And sometimes Dave would come in and talk to us for an hour. Another full hour was a nerd battle behind the glass on the other side, with all the executives deciding how something should be pronounced.
And that's when we should say it's different dialect. My part of my part of that planet says it differently. You wish you could kind of get away with that.
Which is what they ended up doing for everything in the Star Wars universe anyway. Everything is pronounced.
Leia,
Han,
potato,
Han.
potato.
Yeah, everything.
Millennium Falcon, the Millennium Falcon.
Yeah.
Joe.
Darth Vader.
Darth Vader.
Yeah.
So, sort of speaking of how everything is connected, I think all of you have voiced characters that have appeared in books and comic books. So how much do you keep up with your character in those kind of things, even after the show is over?
Absolutely zero. Sorry. I'm very sorry. I haven't had time to read up on it. I will when I retire, but I've not.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, Timothy, what's Timothy's last name?
Zahn.
Timothy Zahn wrote the book on Thrawn, and it had all of Governor Price's backstory. And I was like, wow, that's amazing. We finished recording that character last week. So it was fun to sort of go back and realize, okay, I didn't know any of this. And Henry Gilroy, one of our writers, was actually one who came in and said, they didn't make her mean enough compared to how but it was interesting to read the justification for everything, all of her actions later on after actually finishing recording it. So
I have a quick question before he answers. Do you ever, when you're reading the book, do you just read the lines aloud in her voice ever?
Of course. But I read half the lines of my day for Governor Price. That's the weird thing about voiceover, is that there's always, someone going, well, aren't you snarky? I don't know. There's just, we all have all these characters living within us, and we just can't help it. We're just looking for a venue to get them out and without being arrested,
Probably the only reason we're not mass murderers, because we have a way to get this out of our heads.
So you voiced a lot of characters.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I do. I will try to do the research. Wikipedia is a very big friend of mine. You end up looking up the stuff, especially if you're doing a Qui-Gon Jinn or something that's like an iconic character that you really should know. But if you really follow it, I love the books. I love the comic books. I'm kind of a geek that way. So you do start to fill in the blanks. But after the fact, sometimes when there's a new character or like a solo character, I have to remember the name. What was that? Oh, that's him. That's his name. Okay, what did he do? I try to get as much info as I can before going in. And then, it's neat to try to look it up later and go, oh, he's a bastard. Okay.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
So this is a fun question. If you could pick a book that's just about your character, a book or comic, what part of their life would you want it to be about?
I'd want the prequel to where Zeb, where his people were decimated. I'd like to know what his life was like as a young Lasat, honestly, on his planet when there still was something there. We just get little flashes of it in his dialogue and in his conversations, but I really feel like I don't know enough about what happened prior to the time that he ended up on the Ghost.
I don't know. The book was pretty inclusive. Maybe her teenage years, Governor Price, the teenage years. She was her dating life. She was probably a mean girl. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, what's nice is that there is so much stuff. Now Freya, I have no idea at all about any of her, except that she's sort of over everything. So, yeah, I don't know. I think the teenage years of Price would be great.
For most of my characters, I just want to ask, who hurt you? You know, like, Bolza, what happened? I want to meet Bolza's mom. You know, I want to know what General Tarpals would be a real interesting comic book. I'd love to know, just in general, I would love a prequel to everything. I'd love to know, like, what happened with the Sith and the Jedi. I know we have a great Palpatine book, you know, and all that. I'm so fascinated with how did this Force thing get generated and why, you know, did some people take it on differently. I would love to see something like that. I know people sometimes get scared of prequels, but I'd love to see that book. You know, just
like, was it
the Yoda
ever,
story. Let's see that. What?
Was it ever a whole and then got split in two into dark and light? Was there ever a time in the Force where it was, and maybe you guys can answer this, where it was completely balanced and it had both sides converged
Well, the Sith are very old. The Sithari, it's an ancient thing, and they weren't all bad. Yeah. You know, it wasn't until a later time, in Bane's time, where we had to have one person have all the power. Yeah. So some people using their passion, it wasn't necessarily a terrible thing.
So
you know,
like
so there's many uses of the Force.
Not all of them. They're like the Lannisters. Not all of them were bad.
That's right.
Just most of them.
That's right.
Yeah.
And then the Jedi were an order that came. You know, so it's like I'm just curious. Like, what was Yoda's story? You know, that would love to see that.
I would love to hear the story of the Sith when it wasn't this evil darkness. You know, and how it actually became that. That would be fascinating. So get out there and write
Darth
this
Bane,
stuff,
everybody.
people.
That was Bane. Yeah.
Yeah,
tons.
I hope so. I hope so. That would be great. Yeah. It's Sith Light.
Sith Light. Darth Fred. Yeah.
Kinder, gentler Sith. Yes. With soft hands.
Well, my next question was just how, you've sort of touched on this already, but how Rebels and working on Rebels into Star Wars is different than maybe other things you've worked on, because you have like the longest IMDb I've ever seen. So you've all worked on other projects.
It's different because it was one of the very few things. I think there was Looney Tunes and there was Star Wars that affected me that deeply when I was younger. And to be able to work in that franchise and to know that whatever little contribution I'm making in that is part of canon is kind of an amazing thing, because I know it's going to live forever. And I never know that about anything else that I'm working on. There's so many shows that I've worked on over the last 30 years that still I don't know if anybody's ever seen them. And I'm surprised when they do. But Star Wars is just one of those things. There's a reverence for the franchise that I feel, and a responsibility to the franchise to give everything that I have, even if I'm playing a stormtrooper with a 5-minute lifespan. I want that to really feel right. And I'll do it. I'll scream as many times as they want me to make sure that happens, whether it's in the games or in the shows. So yeah, I think that's what really differentiates it from everything else, and just that level of care. I've never been on another show where the director of the show will actually come in and talk about not only the arc of what's going to happen for our characters, but how it affects society, because this is a cultural phenomenon, and what his vision is, and what George's vision for this franchise initially was, and how it's our responsibility to carry it forward with that same intention. So that's rare in what we do. We don't see that a lot. We don't have time. We just don't have time or the money to do that. Time is money. We walk into that studio, usually it's like, all right, you've got 2 hours, here's your lines, let's get through it as fast as we can. We'll give you as much context as we can and go. With this, it's like, no, we have to get it right, because there are going to be people loving and hating this for centuries to come.
Yeah, it's our mythology.
Yeah.
You know, they were all
Yeah.
students of Joseph Campbell.
Yeah.
You know, both him and and Tolkien. They just all of those guys really wanted to have a long-lasting mythology and see, for people to be into it for a long time, and you want to do it justice. Absolutely.
Well,
Yeah.
and Dave used to say also, he said that, probably half of our audience is going to hate it, but they're still going to watch it.
Yeah.
So he wants to make it just as valuable for them, too, to hate as hard as they want to on it, because it's still of value in terms of the culture of this.
Yeah, to be a part of a culturally connective tissue, which is what Star Wars is, what great stories really are, and it connects us on a global level more so than politics, more so than anything sometimes. And to be just a tiny little part of that, you've got to treat it with respect and fun, but it has to be treated with respect and a little bit of awe. Aw.
Well, and also, it's one of those shows where the stars of the original portion of the franchise are like superheroes to us. I mean, I think all of us have worked with Mark Hamill a lot, and every time I see him, I just kind of go, "Oh my God, I'm working with Luke Skywalker."
Turns into the Chris Farley show. Remember Star Wars? That's cool, right?
It's crazy. I worked on a bunch of episodes on regular show with him, sitting next to him, and they partnered us up. They do that often, and I still, every single time I walk into the room with him, I still have that same feeling. And with Billy D. Williams, and we see him at some of the conventions and things, and I rode in planes with him, and every time I would sit near him, I would just have that same little 8-year-old fanboy squee inside. Carrie Fisher, when she was on the con circuit, we all got to meet her back then, and crazy, but it's just an amazing thing. If you get hugged by her, you were covered in glitter. And she just had this crazy, eccentric way about her, but she's a superhero to me.
Yeah, she was like, I grew up, Disney princesses, everybody needs to be rescued by a man. And all of a sudden, Carrie Fisher comes along with Princess Leia, and I was like, finally a kick-butt, amazing princess. Like, she was my princess, and she still is, There's nothing like her, It's just, she needed to be rescued, and then she's going to rescue you right back. Mm-hmm. It's an equal opportunity. And everybody. I mean, it's just, yeah.
Oh, yeah?
Well, you were talking about how it connects all of us. So, as a cast member, what was your first interaction with the fandom, once you were in the cast?
Ooh, I think it was Star Wars Celebration for me, I think.
Star Wars. Oh, yeah, Celebration was your first.
Yeah, because I went to Star Wars Weekends in Florida with Steve before I was on the show, and then I went to Star Wars Celebration in Orlando, and that kind of blew my brain apart because I was there as much, if not more so, of a fan than I was as a character. I just kept looking around. They're like, "You have to sign. You have to go somewhere and actually work." And I'm like, "But I don't wanna. I wanna go and look. There's Harrison Ford and George Lucas. So it's kind of amazing to be as much of a fan of something that I'm working on as everybody around me. So I end up just, I have no words for it. But I think it was Star Wars Celebration, which was being thrown into the deep end of fandom, which was pretty fantastic. And people coming up and there's nothing better than somebody coming up and saying, "I hate you for what you did." And I'm like, "Thank you so much. It means a lot. It means I've made a difference." Yeah. So.
Yeah, for me, just before I had my first fan experience, D. Bradley Baker came into the studio. It was one of our last records before they had the first Star Wars weekends that I had attended. And he goes, he had been part of Clone Wars. He played all the clones in Clone Wars and a million other things. And he goes, "I really hope you take this in because your life is about to change." And I went, "Really? Really? I know it's Star Wars and stuff, but really, what do you mean?" He goes, "You'll find out." And the next weekend, I went to Star Wars Weekends, and Rebels hadn't even aired yet. They just started doing a little promo for it. They had a little teaser out. And we go to Star Wars Weekends, and they put me in this convertible with a picture of Zeb on the side, and I got to ride in the parade, and I'm waving to people who have never seen my character do anything. And there was so much love from the beginning of the parade all the way to the end of the parade, and for that whole weekend, they just showered us with love, not knowing if they were even going to like it. to be part of something like that on that level, it was so humbling just to see how connected the fans were, and it's a global connection too. There are people there from all over the world, and there was one family that would come and they would do a family reunion at Disney, and they would all dress up in Star Wars characters, and from grandma who was like 90-something years old in a wheelchair to brand new babies, and they had like 50, 60, 70 people in this family, and they insisted that I was part of their tradition, and they sat me down and right in front, and they surrounded me, and they took this big family photo, and so I'm part of their history too, just because I had something to do with Star Wars before they even knew if they liked or hated my character, and that was an anomaly to me. I had no idea that was happening, and to be part of a parade at Disney, I mean, I got to do the wave. It was crazy. It's just crazy.
Yeah, I'm sorry to repeat, but it just to be a fan of something as much as the other fans are is really astonishing. So I can sit in there and talk to you guys about it for forever. And the Star Wars fans are the best. They're like the anime. They like know everything about every character and what's going on. It's just it's truly amazing. It really is. Yeah, and an honor.
Do you ever get intimidated? Because I feel like Star Wars fans can be known for like being nitpicky. So do you ever get like intimidated by that?
The great thing about my character is that he doesn't really know anything. So I don't have to know anything. It's fantastic. And when I do, there's always an expert around that I can defer to. So I was the comedy relief on the show. So it made my job real easy. I was so grateful for that role. If I had to, if I got to perform a character as intense as Kanan, for example, I would have to be more well-versed in the universe. And Freddie Prinze Jr. is a Star Wars geek, so he could handle that really well at conventions. And
Worst Wookiee ever.
yeah. Well, and also they're very protective of the franchise, too. So when we would do Star Wars panels, I think this is the first Star Wars panel we've ever done that didn't have to go through the whole permission process. And so when fans would come at us like that, we would have the buffer of Dave Filoni, who was really great at deflecting everything. And so it really wasn't a problem for me. I haven't really gotten much hate, fortunately. I know that some of us have in the cast, but I personally haven't. Everybody, it's all seemed to be love, unless they're just not telling me.
Yeah, that's been my experience too.
Yeah, no, I get a lot of hate, but for the right reasons.
Good
you
right.
know?
Here
It's good hate.
You deserve it.
You know, I do. And if anybody ever comes at me, I'm just like, I just call them rebel scum and call over a stormtrooper and escort them away. You know, it's very easy.
I did my job.
I did my job today.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think, are we about 15 minutes out now? So we'll start taking some fan questions if anybody has.
I remember the
some-
weirdest question gets a poster.
We have two of them.
We have a mic runner, so.
Turn on the microphone, please.
Hi, I have a question for Mary.
Sure.
I thought it was really interesting to hear you say that Price was such an easy character for you because she was just evil. One of my favorite things, though, about that Thrawn novel was how much it rounded her out.
Yeah.
And I know you just said that all came out after you were done, but did you ever give it any thought afterwards about how you might have played that character any differently, maybe in the last season, if you had that kind of information?
Well, it was interesting because when we were doing it, and I'm not going to get into politics, but it was during the campaign, and it was really interesting to see a woman running, and I just sort of equated myself to what would it be like to be a woman who wanted nothing but power, and was ineffective at keeping it. And what kind of anger would that create? And I didn't know the backstory as to why that was so important to her. And now knowing it, I really don't. I mean, she was, the one thing, again, it's all about intention. And her intentions were very clear. From the minute she walked into Moff Tarkin's office, she knew exactly what she wanted, and she knew how to do it. And that's why she wanted, I think it was the Ninth Fleet, to give to Thrawn and everything else. To get this power. I don't think, because even if Henry and the writers didn't give her a sympathetic moment, and that didn't give her a moment really of vulnerability except in her own world of being ineffective. And there's nobody more dangerous than somebody that wants power, that is ineffective at it, that's still in a position of power. So that's kind of how I played her at the time. And I really don't think I would change it, because it would have changed the dynamic of everything else around me and around the character and around the happenstance of what occurred. So I think I would have played her exactly the same. You know?
Thank you.
You're welcome. It is. That's
Yeah, so this question is for Steve, who I'm glad I can say is older than I am.
Rub it in.
So, voice actors typically can point back to some mentor like Mel Blanc or Frank Oz or even Edgar Bergen. And I was wondering who you would point back to as the person who influenced you the most toward becoming a voice actor?
That's a great question. Well, I was a huge Mel Blanc fan before I even knew that it was humans doing that, when I actually believed those characters were real. I was a fan without even knowing it back then. So he was probably the most impactful as a child. Once I realized that this actually was a viable profession, because I didn't know, I fell into this accidentally. The ones that I looked up to were people like Frank Welker, because I started in creature work and I was fascinated by his abilities, his amazing skill set. And I think the thing that really solidified him as sort of an unwitting mentor was working with him on Scooby-Doo. I got to work with him on Scooby-Doo. And walking into that room with Casey Kasem still in the cast, and it was just an amazing experience walking in there. But the thing that really solidified it for me was not only was he brilliant, but he's kind. And we find that to be true throughout our industry. Most people are. But Frank, the very first day I met him, we recorded and then we went on a little break. And I came up to him and I had to have my little fanboy moment with him. And I said, I love your work. And I didn't even realize you voiced Free Willy and Flit and the Cave of Wonders and all these amazing things in all the Disney movies. And you're just a hero to me. I started in creature work, and I'll never be able to do a lot of the stuff that you do, but you're just a hero to me. And he said, you know what? He goes, here's my phone number. This can be a really difficult business, and if you ever have any problems or questions, or if you ever just want a little advice, here, contact me. And we've stayed friends since then. So he had a huge impact on my life. People like Fred, just one of the kindest humans on the planet. When I first saw him work, I was blown away by just the innate ability that he has as a genius voice actor, but also an unparalleled kindness. Fred and I consider
Back at you.
I consider him to be my brother, honestly, and we're fortunate to have relationships like that with people that are technically our peers, but he does so much that I can't do, and I'm just fascinated and in a state of awe when I get to watch him. D. Bradley Baker's another one, because he's a creature god also, and he's one of those other guys that, like Fred, I'm paired with him often in our roles. We play brothers, and just to be able to sit in a room and watch them come up with something amazing, and then they'll share their whole heart and their whole life and take the shirt off their back if you need it in real life too. Those are the mentors that I like to surround myself with, and that's why I think I landed in voiceover, period. I worked in the music industry and in film before, and people are mean. They're just mean. And in our end of the industry, we really look out for each other. So I could say that about another 200 people in our circle that had equal impact. Her. Director of Cowboy Bebop. She was, directed me in my very first leading role, and she taught me how to act when she didn't have to, and really helped me to find my own vulnerability as a person besides as an actor, and that transformed my whole life. She's now my fiance in real life, by the way.
I don't deserve him because I play evil really easily.
But pretty good living with one of your mentors, and it's pretty good.
end up, and we fight a lot on. We'll be battling each other a lot, but we end up being best friends. And we had a running tally of which creature ate who. Yeah. So I'll be the dragon, he'll be the knight one time, and vice versa. We had a tally of who ate who.
Yeah.
It sounds crazy, but it was true. He ultimately wins, though, because as my dragon eats him, he actually cuts himself out of my body. So he actually wins the debate anyway.
Yeah, we would show up at sessions. We were working on a lot of shows together for a while there, and every single time, I think, almost every session for a while, one of us would walk into the room and say, "I ate you today."
No! It would be that. Sorry, go on.
No, I'm done. I went way over time. Sorry.
All right, first weird question. Supposedly, if all three of you were in a golf tournament and you could pick out a character as your caddy from any of your voice acting repertoire, who would it be?
You win this for sure. We'll
sign that.
Come by the table and we'll sign it for you. Oh my God, it's amazing.
Wow, caddy. Wow.
Which character of ours would we choose as a
Be our
caddy?
caddy.
Oh. Leron from Gurren Lagann.
Yeah, I think Motoko, because she would have a Tachikoma filled with scotch. So, and clubs, I suppose, but yeah.
Just need a Zilla beast being my caddy would be just great. And just destroy the field.
That's awesome. Great question.
Great question.
Yeah, that's definitely the weirdest one so far. Okay.
As voice actors, how do you determine your range? How do you determine what characters you're going to try and undertake, and do you gravitate towards certain types of characters or things based on your vocal range or your capabilities, or do you train to go out of that box and try and do something totally different?
Yeah, I think it's in terms of sustainability in an industry that is constantly being inundated with more and more people wanting to do it, that it's really up to us to stretch our instrument to see how far we can go with it, So, because sometimes directors and producers don't really know, they have an idea of what they want, but they'll hear something that all of a sudden, I didn't expect that. I was supposed to, the ingenue was supposed to have a high voice, and all of a sudden she's going to have this sort of deeper, scratchy thing, and whoa, that's sort of interesting. So I think it's up to us as actors to continue to stretch ourselves, not only vocally, but also in terms of style, because the industry is constantly changing from very crazy cartoony to uber naturalistic to heightened cinematic. So we need to be able to be flexible enough to adapt to the industry to be a part of that. So yeah, and you can do that through training. You can sit at home and watch TV and parrot the voices that you hear. There are many, many different ways to stretch yourself as an actor. So yeah, and I think in the rule book is audition for everything, because you never know what will hit and what will stick and what won't.
Yep. One of the things that's a great question. I talk about this with my students at bloomboxstudios.com. I have cards at my table. No, I accidentally started teaching. We'll talk about that later. But one of the things that I talk about with my students in the very beginning of their voice acting career is I tell them to remember to play. I think that's something that a lot of us forget as adults. We just forget to play because it's kind of beaten out of us. You got to be serious. You got to buckle down. You got to do this. All that's great, but you got to remember to play every single day. So as an actor, whether it's a voice actor or on camera or on stage, I think we have to be willing to take risks and try stuff that is uncomfortable for us. Even if it's not something that we can do professionally, there are a lot of things that I can't do. I'm not a very good impressionist, for example, but I'll shoot for it, and sometimes I get new characters out of it. In fact, that's the way I create a lot of new characters, is by doing a terrible impression. And it's usually my bad impression of one of our friends doing an impression of somebody, and it becomes a brand new character. So I think that you have to be kind of fearless and be willing to look stupid and be terrible. D. Bradley Baker has said you have to be willing to suck.
It's like music.
Yeah, and so
leap into the pool of failure, because it's the only way you learn. Fail spectacularly. Get out there and just face plant over and over and over, because at some point it's going to pay off.
Yeah, unfortunately now we have the advantage of doing auditions at home. Back in the day, we would be going out to a studio and doing the auditions live. Now we do it at home in our own studios. Most people have their own studio. And I'll sometimes, even if it's something that I don't feel like I'm right for, I'll try it out first, and I'll try a bunch of different variations for it. If I feel it's really not solid quality enough, then I won't necessarily send it, or I'll just pass. But I will try everything. I will absolutely try anything and everything and fail. And then, like I said, I might not be able to do that audition well, but I've got a brand new character I can put in my pocket for the next one.
Yeah, so rarely you get to do your own voice. Like I never get to use my real voice, like this one here.
Hey, it's Wayne Newton. How you doing,
Hey, how
Wayne?
you doing there? It's good to see
Good
you.
to see you over there. That's Wayne Newton, ladies and
right.
gentlemen.
Yeah, that's absolutely, both are right. You will get typecasted as your voice sometimes, and there are certain what they call a wheelhouse of what you do, and that's great to explore that, or maybe go in different routes of that thing. But I agree with you there. It's like you got to go do something a little different, always be learning, always stretch, and you'll create a new character halfway through, or they'll become aware of you doing other things. It's amazing. I mean, powers that be start to learn what you can do. I got in, I think I had to scream my way in, doing so many video games and creatures and yelling, and then finally it's like, oh, I get to now do comedy characters. That's what I came in to do, or music. You're like, that's what I started with. But it's like, you kind of get in and see where they want you. You don't get to choose always, but you get to create, and that's really the best part.
And be bold too. If you're a new actor, be bold and try something new. When you are in the studio, if you feel like you can pull it off. You mentioned the caddy thing, and I mentioned Liron from Gurren Lagann. That's a character that I never thought I'd get to play. If you're not familiar with that, most of my characters are really gnarly, big-voiced, tough characters.
And Liron spoke like this. It was, when you screw it in, give it a hard, manly twist.
Was the first line I read for him. And when I went into audition, I wasn't auditioning for that character. They brought me in for one of the leads, one of the tough guys. And I saw the picture of the character sitting on the desk, and I said, I want to read for that. And everybody said, no, that's not for you. And it was one of my friends who was directing at the time, and he just, no, I want you to audition for this. And I begged him, and finally they let me do it. That was the character I booked on the show. And it was one of my favorite roles of all time. It was amazing. So sometimes you have to be bold enough to stick by your guns and do something that feels right to you.
Hey, sorry.
Oh, wow, voice of God.
Where
God, is
are
that
you?
you?
I hear
God, I'm sorry for everything I did.
Grandma?
Yeah, how is it for the three of you if you kind of, like anyone you can answer, like going from one role to the other, it's like, because you were kind of like briefly talking about it, is it like a hard process for you? Is it natural to go from like a completely different role from one series to the other? Or do you have like a specific approach, a strategy, or like do you practice certain lines, or just like how do you kind of like be cool about it?
Well, as a voice director, the most important thing for me to do is to give someone a voice reference for where they are. Because if I know if it's one of these two guys, they're going to have done, since the last time I've seen them, 5 to 10 sessions of playing other characters, multiple characters. So it's my job to get them back into this world, infuse them right back into the world by giving them a vocal reference of their character, and that's it. Usually that's the key, and I think most actors' brains work that way, that all they need is hearing their voice, and it's like, you're right, it's a teleporter, it's one of these right into the world and right into their brain, because actors' brains have a lot of rooms, so you just got to open the right door, and that is usually through a vocal reference.
But that said, that takes time to develop that muscle memory. I remember very early on in my career working on shows like Digimon, where I'm playing 5 or 6 different characters, and I'll have come in from another session. I'll have been playing Wolverine for the morning, doing that for the session, and I come into the room, I'm going to do this in the afternoon. And I wasn't sure what was going to come out before I opened my mouth, and I had to go through the whole scale before I could find that and listen to the reference. When you've been doing it as long as we have, you actually build up muscle memory in there, and she can play something for us, and instantly it's right back. That's really all we need, is just that little trigger.
Yeah, it depends on how long you've been playing the character. So you can jump right into some of them because they're right in there. If you hear it, it's funny. You'll always remember the personality of what you played. Sometimes for me, I can't remember how high or low it was, the pitch. Yeah. Sometimes I forget how low. Like with Bullseye, I was like, oh, we're really low. How much texture. There's always things like that. And then there's always a handle that might be a word that'll help you get in involved into your character, like something, a line or two that'll lead you in.
Yeah.
Oh, no, please. No, great question.
Last
That was a
question.
fantastic question.
No pressure. So, part of the charm of Rebels was that everyone was living together as well. And so, Zeb and Ezra. And to Steve's point earlier, the same thing happened with Cowboy Bebop. And a lot of that was a family dynamic. So, of all the characters you all have played, which one would you want to live with?
I don't think I'd live long with Governor Price.
Live with or live as?
Live with.
Live with.
Spike. I didn't play him, but.
She does now.
Hello.
God, which character would I want to live with?
I would
Julia.
want to
I have
live with Gilmon, because I love Gil
I love Gilmon too.
from Digimon.
He gets you in a lot of trouble though.
I know, that's okay.
Yeah.
He can digivolve into something cool and we could fly and do fun things.
Oh man, that would be a tough one. It wouldn't be Tank Dempsey, for sure. That would just be messy. That would just be messy. Oh man, I don't know. I got to think about it for a second. Freddie, you got one?
Boy, there's too many. I'm just thinking like, yeah, that wouldn't work out. Buff Frog would be fun from Star in the Forces of Evil. He seemed pretty cool. Damon Barrett, I would like from Gears of War because he'd help fix everything for me. That would be like, yeah, you work that out. Don't worry about it. I got it. Who would I like to
Yeah, it wouldn't be Starscream. That would be terrible.
Yeah.
The one that comes to mind because we're talking about Star Wars, I got to play a Gonk droid once.
Yeah.
And I think just having a Gonk droid in the house would be pretty cool.
I agree with that,
Just
too.
because they're absolutely useless and they make funny noise, just like me. I would serve food on top of it. And
Yeah, you'd have to make it into a bar for sure. I think Zara from Critical Role would be fun to sort of
Yeah.
hang out with, just because we could go out and sing to the moon together. That would be nice.
You would destroy everything in the house.
You
though.
would.
It would be great.
People, like Hulk would destroy everything.
Yeah.
But accidentally. He
Terrible
wouldn't mean
roommate,
to.
yeah.
Beast, you'd learn something from.
Beast would be great.
Qui-Gon or any Jedi, you'd learn something. So it'd be cool to be with someone you learn something from. That would be great.
Beast would be kind of strict, though.
Absolutely, yes, a bit. But go on and do your thing.
Mind your manners.
I'm just going to watch my shows.
Yeah.
My shows. And Beast watching Days of Our Lives.
Wouldn't that be great?
Say, don't interrupt
This is the
me.
part where Claudia leaves him. It's quite terrible, actually.
Logan, don't interrupt me.
Claudia, don't go.
Can you bring more Cheetos when you come? Yeah. Oh my God. That might have qualified as the second weirdest question.
Yeah.
I think so,
I think
yeah.
so. All right, you two gentlemen,
Yeah,
come
you guys
on up and
come on
grab
up and
your
take these.
posters.
Weird
All right.
question.
Is that all we have time for? Is that it?
I think so.
That was
Well,
so much
we're gonna
fun,
be
you guys.
here
guys
all
were so
weekend,
cool.
So please come and say hi.
Come on by.
Thank you, man.
You guys have a panel tomorrow or Sunday,
Yes,
right?
let's announce our panels. We're going to be signing all weekend. We're going to be doing Twisted Tunes, all three of us, plus a bunch of other lunatics.
Yeah.
We're going to be doing Twisted Tunes. If you have kids, just know that it's going to get dirty. So they give a big disclaimer there, and we say naughty things.
Not intentionally. It just goes there sometimes.
No, it's intentional.
No, it's
intentional.
It's intentional. But your
100%.
most beloved characters are going to say awful things.
What are you talking about? I know, right? It's going to be terrible, so just go again. You might be soiled.
Okay. And then Mary and I are going to be doing a masterclass in this very room, voiceover masterclass. It's going to be just loose. We're going to give you kind of an overview of how the industry works. If you're curious about voice acting or how to get into voice acting, we're going to talk about that in there on Sunday.
Or just finding your voice in real life. You don't have to be an actor to find your true voice, to get out there and say what you need to say.
Yeah, just remembering how to play, and we'll give you some tips and tricks and really fun stuff.
What
in there.
time?
And it's going to be a
Sunday?
Q&A. That's going to be 2 o'clock on Sunday in this room.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, and Twisted Tunes will be on the main stage tomorrow at 2. And Freddie, what do you got coming up?
Oh, no, I just, let's see here. We have an Overwatch panel on Sunday at 12:45 at 126AB. So there. That's this. I think I know where I am, yes.
Yeah.
My tactical visor is operating.
And if you guys are interested in learning more about voiceover, I am teaching voiceover now online. You can do it from anywhere in the world on any platform. We choose Zoom, but you can do it on one of these. and it's a real user-friendly, affordable way to learn about the world of voice acting. It's called bloomvoxstudios.com. You don't have to remember that. Just come by my table. I have cards. Okay, thank you guys so much for having us. Thank you for having us.
Great job. Great question.
And may the Ashla be with you.
Star Wars geek girls. They're geek girls that like Star Wars. And sometimes cry.